had to bring to the fore how Finland was able to rise up from that unfortunate incident to become one of the best in the world. And I'm hoping that we as a people must have learned from all of that. But the thing is, I think fantastic discussions all through. The problem has always been that of implementation, and it will boil down to what the Vice President did say yesterday by saying that he had the willpower. But again, some are still skeptical on that. We're hoping that in the days to come, we'll be able to see all of that will in the government, in all of those talks.
You know, we tried to talk to the senator, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Education, Chukwumeji,
yes.
but he couldn't speak because he said the noise was too much. But I asked him a question: what does the National Assembly plan to do with the results of this summit? And I'm hoping that we'll get to talk to him before the end of this summit.
Well, possibly so, because some would also say maybe we need some kind of legislation, but we know we're not in short supply of such. So it boils down again to the willpower. Let's hope that this particular emphasis on education wouldn't go on the ground and go unnoticed.
They're about to begin.
Well, the next session is about to start off now, so we'll just let you in on what will happen after that. And we have so many other people and so many other views. Don't forget, we're right here live at the Hilton here in Abuja, venue of the 20th summit of the NESG. And, this other plenary is on now.
To moderate this panel. Given the fact that we have had a wonderful morning, the keynote speaker was wonderful, and the other panelists also, their contribution was very enlightening. We're not going to spend much time, but to say that within this panel, we are going to also try our best to follow suit. So without any time lost, let me just introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Christian Rogg from DFID. He's going to tell us why they need to be in school, addressing the challenges that prevent access, equity, and inclusion for all children. Christian, you have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was also going to say good morning, but I'm afraid I have to correct myself. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, distinguished guests, excellencies. I was given the title to talk about why children need to be in school. But actually, I'd like to expand that to talk about why children need to be in school and learning. And essentially what I'll be talking about is the opportunities that we have to address the challenges and the means that we have to address the challenges that currently prevent access, equity, and inclusion for all children. And because of this topic, it's by definition more focused on basic rather than secondary and tertiary education. A quick recap. Schooling and learning are really important because they bring big benefits. They bring big benefits for the individual. There's evidence that each year of schooling increases wage income by 9% later on. A lot of evidence of what works, and we can see that both in Nigeria and outside, and we can tap into that. I've talked about tackling the barriers in the wider enabling environment. This is about the conducive political environment, the conducive home environment, and the conducive school environment. And lastly, I've talked about opportunities for learning, which are about the teaching practices, which are about effective delivery system also reaching out to where students are now. And lastly, it is about increasing accountability within the system. So let me stop here so we have time for discussion. I'll hand over to Madam Chair, and we have lots of panelists who I hope will agree with some of what I said and hopefully disagree with some of it so we get a bit of a debate going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rogg, for not only focusing on really explaining to us why children are not in school, but giving us some examples of how we can address this issue. But to tell you the truth, when I look at the map that you present, many children are not attending primary school. I think the issue of human rights that our first keynote speaker talked about is still alive. How family, within the community, and within the nation. So I would like to turn to our colleague, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Please, sir, tell us, what can we do really to turn this around and ensure that the right of children, the right of youth, the right of adults from all walks of life is upheld so that they can have access to quality and relevant learning opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Rob, thank you for the challenge in the sector and what is being done. I see there are quite a few politicians here and leaders of the country. I want to start by affirming that education clearly is a human right. It's there in the document, but this is not a way to tell about the document. But I want to start with part of what we're trying to do in the light of the current national human rights situation is to address how we frame the discussion, because it's important. And there are two issues that have been drafted onto the dialogue of education. One is, and these are functionality issues, because to have an intrinsic conversation about education is one thing, but to be able to demonstrate to policymakers what is lost or gained by not addressing education adequately, I think is central to being able to to drive the point home. And there are two areas. One is education and national security, and the other is education and citizenship. Now, and the citizenship issue is huge. One of the things we've tried to do is look at education in the context of elections in Nigeria and how elections are administered. And when you look at how elections are administered, Nigerian law creates two categories of citizens based on education. Those who have gone to school can vote and be voted for. Those who have not gone to school cannot be voted for, and they're lucky if they can vote. Now, what happens is, those people who have not gone to school and who want to run for office then forge documents to become politicians. And when you look at the court records, the number of people who should be in jail who are actually answering honorable and something similar is distressing. Now, and the court records tell a pathetic story. Folks go and doctor documents and win elections. You're lucky if you can use the court system to catch them. The number of people we catch and the number is nowhere near half enough, near close to the number of people that we can catch. And so what happens? We've got a lot of people running the country, taking major decisions, who belong to jail. And when they are doing that, which takes me back to the point Rolf makes about the fact that we are graduating kids who cannot read and write. Why is that so? Because the people running the system are corrupt. There is no way you can deal with this question of education and access and equity without getting down to the question of corruption. And I don't know whether you remember that last year, Transparency actually came out with a global report on education and corruption around the world. And Nigeria had a spectacular place in it. Now, how do you send a kid to school where the metrics are there for determining what you can achieve at a particular time or what you cannot achieve, and the person comes out without having met any of the metrics, and yet you give them a certificate? And nobody takes responsibility for that. I pose this as a rhetorical question that we've all got to try and chew on, because I don't want to monopolize this floor. Just quickly, and I'll be done, two other things that I think that we've tried to address. One is education and civics. Government cannot fund education alone. The private sector is making a lot of profit. Standards and regulation is very poor. But civics are not doing enough. And I went to a unity school. And the unity schools at a point used to offer a great deal in terms of quality access without breaking the backs of the parents who had to be part of this experience. And those of us who went to the unity schools have chosen not to give back. All over the world, in every country where education works, those who get quality education have a responsibility to give back. And the one thing I think I'd like to put on the agenda of the NESG is how we create a civic movement about giving back in the education sector. And I say this as the chair of the Education Advocacy Committee of the Unity Schools Old Students Association. We've got a responsibility here. This is about our very existence. This is about our kids. This is about our country. And the other thing is the situation in the northeast of Nigeria. We're having this dialogue today, the day after it came out that about 85 schools in Borno State have been closed. Think about the consequences of that as to achieve over this. Thank you very much.